Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this peculiar graphics card cost me about £35 on eBay. I just had to have it because I've not seen anything like this before. Now at first I thought this was a custom GPU, perhaps someone had just made some brackets and glued them to the PCB, but this is actually a genuine card that came from the factory like this, at least from what I can tell. There are other pictures of this card online, unless this one has just had many photo shoots over its lifetime. Now the eBay listing is what attracted me. The seller basically said that it's absolutely useless for pretty much any modern game, and they said that it will make for an interesting desktop ornament, which I can't argue with at all. The listing then went on to say that the possibilities are truly endless with this card in terms of who this could be the perfect gift for, stating that Christmas, birthdays and bar mitzvahs weren't out of the equation. Now, to be honest, I don't really think the possibilities really begin, but there we go. Now, perhaps you've told the kids you're getting them a graphics card and you just want to see the disappointment on their faces, was the continuation of that description there, and I think it's partly why I ended up with this thing. Now, you may be wondering then, what exactly is it? Well, this is a Medion NVIDIA 9500 GT, although GPU-Z actually states that this is an MSI card, but perhaps this one shares a BIOS with the MSI versions of the 9500 GT. This is a 256 megabyte GDDR3 graphics card, and as per the seller's description, it will pretty much be useless in modern games. Now, what really attracted me to this thing in terms of its design was the obvious fan placement. It's as if Medion have said, you know what, we don't really want to release a passive card. What can we do quickly before we send this out to retailers? I know, we'll glue a fan to the back. Because of this, I just couldn't help but wonder not only what this card is capable of, but how well this fan actually works. Actually setting it up on my makeshift test bench didn't really cause any problems. There's no obstructions with the motherboard or the RAM or anything like that. I've got it in this socket 1150 i5 4460 PC build. This CPU will of course allow the GPU to reach its maximum potential, because this is a very old card and not capable of much anymore. There are no restrictions here, and there shouldn't really be any restrictions if you were to use this inside a case. Now the fan is set up in a way that the air is actually sort of blown over the aluminium fins. It's sucked from behind the card and then over the fins themselves, rather than sort of drawing hot air away and out towards the rest of the case. It sort of draws the air over the fins and then out towards the back of the PC case itself. So in that regard, yeah, it sort of makes sense as to how it is positioned. Jumping into some games then, and you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, with some of the results, or at least one of the results, but then again you might totally not be. GTA 5 is where we'll start here. We were able to hit between 20 and 30 frames per second at half of 720p. This was for the most part, or at least it was when I got started, but as we drove into downtown Vinewood here, the frame rate actually picked up. It's as if all of a sudden the car just thought, okay, let's make a little bit of an effort, and we started seeing a more respectable frame rate overall. The other games I tested included CSGO, which, yeah, I don't really know why I said you might be pleasantly surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised because I was expecting about 10 FPS, but because the card exceeded that in all of the games I tested, I guess that's why I would consider this a victory. But yeah, in terms of actually playing games with this thing, well, you're going to struggle to find anything that runs all that well. CSGO runs worse than GTA. It's not often that you'll see at least 30 FPS at 720p with the lowest settings, and there will be just some odd moments of frame time issues and complete slowdown. It's probably in part due to the low amount of VRAM. Now, Crysis Warhead, the successor to Crysis, the sort of story expansion, also ran with about 25 to 35 FPS. The average was okay, although there was some noticeable stutter here and there, and there were a few extra frame drops when the action started to heat up or when things just exploded. Now, during my testing, with the fan enabled or plugged in, the card didn't really get that loud at all. It sort of stayed at the same noise level throughout, and it didn't really exceed 60 degrees. I think 61 was about the maximum, but I couldn't help but wonder just how effective then this thing actually was at keeping the GPU cooled, because I thought the fan placement might be a bit, well, non-effective. So I unplugged it for the next test, jumped back into the game that got the card the hottest the first time round, which was Crysis Warhead, and I have to say that the temperature just kept going up and up and up. I thought, oh, maybe it will stop at 70 degrees, maybe it will stop at 80, but no, it just carried on going up and up and up until eventually we got up to about 90 degrees, and we started to see some slowdown with the game. So despite the placement of the fan, it is actually effective at keeping this, what looks like a passive card on the surface, cool. It still looks like a bit of an afterthought, but I think all in all it's a very interesting design, and it's nice to see that despite the fan placement, the card is actually cooled effectively. This is probably one that's going to remain in my collection, and I'll bring it out every so often to test any modern games that decide they want to support DX10. But as for this video, well, I hope you've enjoyed this look at this very unique 9500 GT. If you did, leave a like down below, leave a dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.